Hello, everybody out there. With us once again is Bryant Thomas, a longtime newsman of radio fame, and most recently with the AP News Bureau in Washington, D.C. And the last time I talked with Bryant, we got a lot of praise and a lot of flack, generated a lot of comments pro and con.
That's good.
We'll give it another try. Whatever you guys want to say, that's fine with us. Just, keep it fairly clean and civil. But, you could tell us we're right, we're wrong, whatever. Anyway, two topics I want to talk about tonight is, first of all, Kamala's baggage. Now, the last time I talked with Brian, I said that, how will Kamala escape the heavy baggage that Biden would apparently thrust upon her just by the associations. Brian said it'd be no problem, so we'll talk about that. And then we're going to get into Mark Zuckerberg's confession that the White House did indeed pressure him to suppress stories that didn't fit the official narrative, including COVID-19, the vaccine, and also the Hunter Biden laptop. He says he regrets it. He shouldn't have done it, but they're under heavy pressure from the White House. So let's start with Kamala. Now, Brian, there's so much of the baggage from Biden, the unsuccessful policies of Biden, the border, inflation, increasing crime, et cetera, et cetera. Now, you said the last time that that would not affect her. That wouldn't carry over. Do you still feel that way?
Yeah, and I think the polls prove that. But here's the big rub with all of this Biden stuff. That doesn't mention any of the positive things that the Biden administration brought, and that's infrastructure spending, the attempt to bring down student loan debt that the Supreme Court has screwed up, and all the other positive aspects of the Biden administration.
But even those were controversial. For instance, the infrastructure spending plan, they contribute at least some of the inflation to that. And a lot of that hasn't really been spent yet, or according to some reports, misappropriated or held it in bay. And the student loan, there's been a lot of flack from people who did not get student loans. So I don't think those are clean issues for Biden without any blowback from that.
Well, the Republicans blow back no matter what. They're experts at that. Even when they can't find something legitimate, they invent something that's illegitimate. We know that. They've done it since Reagan, and they get away with it routinely.
And the Democrats don't do any of that.
Well, I don't know that they don't do any of it, but the Republicans are masters at it.
Okay. Now, how do you justify their border policy? Millions of illegals, now they're being termed newcomers, across the border, no background checks, no COVID vaccines, by the way, when the pandemic was high. They didn't have to be checked. They didn't have to be vaccinated. And we don't know who they are. Now, a lot of them are coming here to seek a better life, admittedly, but mixed in with that, there have been hundreds now that have been designated as terrorist threats. And everybody's coming across the border unchecked. It is now straining the budgets in the big cities of taking care of them, housing them, giving them food, giving them, in effect, credit cards and all that. New York City, $500 million expenditure so far to house migrants in hotels while veterans are sleeping on the street. Now, how can they justify that?
Well, they can start by busing them back to Texas from whence they came. I think this whole thing is just a political football that also existed in the Trump administration, perhaps not to the degree that it does now, or has done. But right now, the border incursions are almost nil. And the whole problem is that it doesn't matter whether it's true. If you say this often enough and long enough, people believe it. This is like Goebbels reincarnated.
You say the border incursions are almost nil. Not from what I've seen, not from my research, not from I've read. It's down from what it used to be, largely because the individual states are taking their own security measures, not because of the federal government. Now, when you said all they have to do is bust them back to Texas from whence they came into Texas from across the border because the border is wide open under Biden and Harris.
And how about under Trump in the years prior to that?
Nothing
He gets a pass on this. Is that what you're saying?
largely because nothing like it in numbers, in the volume. And he was
No,
building
no.
that wall, which Kamala disparaged, that it wouldn't hold anybody back, this and that. It was inhumane. And now, our next thing with Kamala, she seems to be taking on Trump's policies largely, like they weren't in office for the past 4 years.
Well, she has no choice but to distance herself from some of this, obviously, for political reasons. Now, whether it's going to play out in her favor remains to be seen. We don't
Well,
know.
well, I mean, if her policies were so good, why is she not only distancing herself from them, but she's repeating what Trump already put out as policy. So she's agreeing with Trump's policies and trying to make it seem like her own.
I don't think she's agreeing with him. I think she's picking and choosing things that she knows she can live with at some point in this campaign. To say that she's rubber stamping everything that Trump did while he was in office, that's cuckoo.
Well, I mean, all of a sudden, she's not against fracking, and Pennsylvania is a key state.
Yeah,
Frack is big here.
that's right.
All of a sudden, she's even talking about reestablishing part of the wall, and she's just talking about a secure border. You look at her commercials, you think they were Trump commercials until her face appears. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
that is,
the fracking thing is a boo-boo. Um, I think that she knows Pennsylvania is key to her election victory, and she's not going to alienate anybody, any large group of people within the state. That's kind of predictable when you think about it. It's unfortunate that she dug herself a hole with this early on by opposing fracking and then now turning around and saying I can live with it. That's unfortunate.
well, I mean, it's more than unfortunate. It's hypocritical, and is it to be believed? I mean, since this is an election year conversion, is she sincere about this? And will she really reverse the policies now that she says she's going to reverse her previous stances? Or is it just election engineering?
That's a good question. I think voters will have to look at all of these facts before the November runoff and decide for themselves uh, how much of it is political flack and how much of it is actual political fact.
Also, in the commercials, they talk about how she secured the border. I mean, that is laughable. That is ridiculous. They have her on tape from a few years back where she's saying, the people across the border are not criminals, shouldn't be treated that way. We have to be humane to these people. It actually helps the U.S. rather than hurts it. I mean, that's all on tape. And all of a sudden, it's like that doesn't exist. It's like deep sixing it, the memory hole in George Orwell's 1984, but now they're doing it electronically.
Well, you know what? She isn't the first politician to do a dance, a do-si-do on an issue, or several issues. If you look back at any political campaign, it's full of people who say one thing and then look at the poll numbers and then reverse course. That's not new.
Agreed. Agreed. It's not new, but my question is she really going to do what she is now saying that she's going to do?
Well, I hope that at least if she takes a position, she sticks to it and decides that this is my position for the general election and doesn't waffle again and make another retreat on something that she has said I have changed my mind on. The worst thing she can do is, say one thing, say another, and then go back to the first thing. That's political suicide, and I
Okay.
can't believe she'd do that.
Okay, Brian, we're both newsmen. We've had long careers in the news, and both of us were known wherever we worked to be aggressive with politicians to get them to answer questions that they wanted not to answer, wanted to avoid, wanted to dodge. As a newsman, what do you think of Kamala's dodging the media? She hasn't talked to anybody since she was nominated.
And she's going to talk tomorrow night or Thursday night on the 29th of August. And that'll be the first interview that the two of them will do together. And I'll be interested to see what is asked by Donna Bash at this interview.
Let's hope Donna Bash is aggressive as a reporter should be. Not nasty, not hostile, but this is the question. What is your clear answer? Don't dodge it, don't circumvent it, don't put different terms on it. Answer the questions that you should be answering as a candidate.
One of the things they said on one of the episodes of uh, the Joe Scarborough show, Morning Joe, was that they hoped that Dana Bash would take the mold of Tim Russert in Meet the Press
Yeah.
and have a no holds barred question session and ask the tough questions. And I hope she does. And if she doesn't, we'll know that then that was not such a great interview.
What do you think the chances are of that happening?
I think she's under tremendous pressure to do just that. So she doesn't give fodder to the far right and to Fox News to take a dump all over her, which they love to do anyway.
Okay, we'll see what the outcome of that is, and then we can discuss it further. The second topic, Zuckerberg's confession that yes, indeed, to his now regret, that he did suppress information, accurate information about COVID-19 and about the Hunter Biden laptop, even in terms of humor and satire. A number of things were suppressed that didn't fit the White House narrative. And he said they were under constant, prolonged pressure from the White House to take down those things, that not to let them surface. Now he's confessing to it only after Congress started aggressively investigating his role in that. So, it's an apology, I think, insincere and too late. It's a convenient apology. But so what do you think of that? That what they were suppressing on Facebook and other media sites, including YouTube, was really being directed by the White House in ignoring the First Amendment, of which we both cherish because of our professions.
Well, if all of that is true, and if there is no pressure now by the Republicans to sing this tune to make Biden and Harris look bad just prior to the election, then I might say it's really unfortunate that the White House got caught doing this. I'm not so sure that the Republicans are not privately pressuring him the same way the White House might have.
Well, I mean, be that as it may, it could very well be. Although since the Republicans are not in power right now, I don't think they have the same juice that the Democrats do.
Well, they have the House and they can start investigations, as you know.
Okay, yeah, maybe that's one of the reasons why he is now confessing to be more cooperative, since they have the House, and who knows how the next election is going to turn out. But put that aside, be that as it may, the fact is that he did suppress these stories, self-admittedly,
Hmm.
pressure from the White House, stories that were not inaccurate. Now, for instance, there was a lot of dissent by expert doctors who were talking about some qualifications that should be attached to the COVID-19 vaccine. They wouldn't allow that on. And the Hunter Biden laptop story. I mean, that was an accurate story at the time that it was being suppressed on Facebook and other sites. The FBI had already quietly admitted that it was genuine, that it was Hunter's laptop, and yet 51 former intelligence officials and chiefs signed a letter saying that, it smacked of Russian disinformation. So that was a big deception coordinated by the government in power, which was Biden's.
I don't dispute that at all. I think what's unfortunate about it is that um, everything started up with a Republican effort to make sure that Biden was never going to get out of the limelight of scrutiny. He took the oath of office with Republicans already hell-bent on embarrassing him at every turn. And he may have made it easier for them with these types of maneuvers. But that doesn't mean that everything the Republicans said about Biden is true. It might be embellished, it might be thought up, it might be factual. We don't know what the whole panoply of excuses and information is about what Biden did and didn't do.
Including what was on the laptop.
Well, we don't, who knows what's on the
We
laptop?
know
That's
it's
my,
on the laptop. It's all been published, and the FBI and other forensic experts say it is genuine. And they haven't answered any questions about that. The whole thing about the laptop, it wasn't that Hunter Biden was screwing around with everybody. He was naked on some of those things that he had on the laptop. He was having sex, this and that. That wasn't what the important part of the story was. What was contained on the laptop was not the pornography, and some of it might have even been illegal, by the way. But put that aside. That's not what the crux of the matter was. What was also revealed on that laptop was emails between Hunter and Joe's brother, how they were extracting money from foreign nations and filtering it to themselves and also to various relatives. I mean, that's all in emails. If it's untrue, if it's a distortion, if it's just a Republican disinformation campaign, then let's explore it. And there are a number of pollsters who have said that that might have affected the election and given it to Trump instead, because they polled a number of people and they claimed that there was a high enough percentage where it would have swung the election to Trump. So if that's true, that was definitely election interference.
coulda, shoulda, woulda. We don't know whether it would have changed the results of the election at all. Um, I think that people in 2020 were concerned about economic issues as they always are. And Trump did not have the right answers on the economy. Maybe Biden didn't provide them in the end, but he talked a better game for voters. And that's why he eventually prevailed in the election. Now, does that mean he did everything right after the election? Of course not. No president ever does that. And Biden is no exception to that.
Do you think that Biden, by and large, was much more put upon by the Republicans than Trump has been put upon and still is being put upon by the Democrats?
Well, I think that, look, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Trump's meteoric rise in politics stunned everybody. It stunned all the Republicans who lost to him, and it stunned the Democrats who could not believe that he actually became the nominee of the party. And then they started looking at what Trump had said and done over the decades leading up to his becoming a candidate, and they said, this isn't right. This man cannot be president of the United States. So they started going after him. That's understandable. But Trump has this tremendous ability to say, everybody's out to get me. It's like, help, help, the paranoids are out to get me. And I think that people got tired of that. They got tired of this, oh, why me? Why is everybody after me? Why don't they leave me alone? And I think that's one of the things that got Trump into trouble in 2020.
All right, Brian, but in terms of both sides do it to each other, I think it was a lopsided assault on Trump. I mean, when he came down the escalator, they were after him, impeached him twice in office on specious charges.
Well, I don't agree they were specious, but anyway.
All these lawsuits against him, kangaroo courts. I mean, they're making up the law with prejudiced judges and prosecutors out to get him. I mean, if you look into these cases, to me, that's more than obvious. So, I mean, in terms of an assault on Trump, it doesn't. It's much worse than the assault on Biden. I mean, they've been after him tooth and nail, and they're still after him now. Look at this assassination attempt. Now, I don't want to get into any conspiracy theories, but I mean, at the very least, it was sloppy and incompetent. Some people are saying at the very least it was like stand down. Whatever happened happens, or maybe much worse. But I mean,
Oh, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think there was a lapse in Secret Service protocol, if not negligence, that allowed this kid to get on that roof and fire. I don't doubt that at all.
but why did that happen with Trump?
It's a good question. That's a very good question. I don't know.
Look at how they were denying Secret Service protection to RFK Jr.,
Right.
even though both his uncle and his father were assassinated.
Right.
The Kennedy name still draws a lot of praise and a lot of nutcases, and yet
Mhm.
they consistently refuse to give him Secret Service protection.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, and I think the Trump assassination attempt is going to heighten the security level for all high level candidates in the future. I think we've we've had a nasty history of political violence against our high public officials in this country. We've assassinated a number of presidents, um, and to say nothing of those who ran for office at different levels of government, governors and things like that, who also got killed, candidates for office who got killed. So America's bent of going after political figures who might not be in the mainstream or who might not agree with a certain sect within the voting public is well known and well documented.
All right, wrapping up now, Brian. Are you still predicting that Kamala will prevail? She'll be the next president.
Well, if things continue to progress the way they are, they're giving her more states now in terms of the border states, the swing states that are much better for her now than they certainly were for Biden, North Carolina among them. Um, if that continues to be the case, and there's no hiccups along the way with her performance or with any major stories, I think maybe she could win the election. I think it's still up for grabs. Essentially, I think it's hers to lose.
Okay, and if she does become president, how how assured are you that she will be a good president and the country will be better off after her 4 years in office because of her actions and policies as president?
Well, I don't think she's going to come into the office with the kind of swirling controversy that Biden had with the Ukraine stuff and the Hunter Biden laptop and all that sort of paraphernalia that didn't help him at all. I think her baggage is probably the border, and and um, well, let's see how she handles that between now and election day. If she is installed as president and takes assertive action to make sure that the border is secured once and for all by hook or by crook, then you got to give her the benefit of the doubt. If she continues to do what Trump and Biden and Obama and Bush before them did, and that was not much in terms of slowing down the process, then she'll deserve to get criticized.
A question people are critics are asking about her border policy and other things that she's claiming she'll fix is what's she been doing for the past 4 years with Biden? Why didn't they fix it earlier?
That's a good question. I don't know why they didn't fix it earlier. I think she could have had a more upfront role, a more visible role in doing the delegation of the border work that she was given by the president and apparently did not do, at least to the degree that would have avoided political uh, criticism.
Yeah, well, they're saying that it's a matter now of trying to portray themselves not as the incumbents, but as the challengers. So it's like we're still 4 years ago with Trump in office. I mean, you look at the commercials or speeches and all that. It's all like, they were not, they haven't been in office, So, I mean, so much of it depends on how they're portrayed in the media and what media people are listening to. So, it's up in the air. I don't know who's going to win, but
I agree. It's up in the air. I think it's unfortunate that a lot of the bigger issues, Medicare, Social Security, um, energy prices, which are now coming down a little bit, but there's nothing to prevent the energy industry from inventing another war in Ukraine somewhere else to rack up energy prices on the futures market. And they've done this every time the Democrats are in power. This is not a new game, and it works. It
Okay.
works.
I don't want to get into that too much. It lengthen this too long, but for another sequence, we'll do it about the war in Ukraine and who's responsible for it. Now, you seem to be saying just now that the energy companies started the war in Ukraine.
No, I'm saying that they used it as a pretext to hike oil prices to the stratosphere when, in effect, the absence of Ukrainian oil and Russian oil from the US market was negligible. Even the Petroleum Institute admitted that. And yet they still fractured the oil futures, and the prices took off like a jet.
Okay, and akin to that, you've said before that there's price gouging, and Kamala a few days ago announced that she would have price gauging. She meant price controls to prevent price gouging, and she's already walking that back, or her minions are, because she doesn't say anything directly to the press, because it's unworkable. Nixon did that in '71 for 90 days and scrapped it. It's been done in the Soviet Union, a lot of totalitarian countries. It never works. So that leads to the question: did she do that just to get votes, thinking that the public would think it's a great idea, or
Mhm.
doesn't she know better? And the latter is really frightening if she is that naive about basic economics.
No, she's not that naive. I think it was a trial balloon to see whether oil prices would respond. And I think you've seen some reduction in retail prices in the past couple of weeks. If you see that trend continuing, she'll back away from it completely because that will have established what she wanted to have happen, and that is lower prices just in time for the election. And every person who runs for office likes that nonsense.
Now, prices have declined in what, groceries or oil?
Oil prices, gasoline prices.
Well, he's still tapping into the reserve, isn't he?
No, I don't think, I think the reserve tapping is done. Um, and I know that according to the American Petroleum Institute, this country is totally self-sufficient. We export by choice, but we are totally self-sufficient when it comes to meeting our own oil needs. The fact that we elect to sell product abroad is another story.
Yeah, I think, it should, if we produce it here, it should be consumed here. However, with international trade and all that, I don't know if either party would go along to keeping it for domestic consumption, but that's a topic for another time. So,
Yeah.
Brian Thomas, a longtime radio newsman, most recently with the AP in Washington, D.C. Thank you for our second segment of this debate. And guys out there, we like your comments. Just keep them reasonable and don't make them too insulting, but express yourself, and pros, cons, you agree with us, disagree, that's all fine in the mix. So Brian, thank you, and we'll see you again soon.
You bet.